Welcome to Don't Get This Twisted. I am the professor, and I'm here with my co-host, Tina. How you doing today?
Hey, how you doing, Professor?
Oh, I'm doing quite well on a lovely day in California. Today, we are going to have an interesting conversation on what we like to call quarantine madness. I think that a lot of people in the country right now are either going through it or are quite over it. I guess we'll have our own definitions for that once we get into our conversation. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of madness going on. What do you think?
Absolutely. I agree. There's a lot going on and people are not the same as they were before COVID hit.
Correct. Let's see. How are we going to start this? I guess I'll throw something out there and you can kind of tell me what you think. I think obviously with what's gone on over the last year and a half, people being locked up has just changed the way people think either about each other or their own mental state. What do you think?
I agree with that. I noticed that a lot of people are struggling when they haven't before, whether they lost their job and financially are not able to take care of things, especially now that the government stopped the extra funding for COVID unemployment, or whether it's from being locked in. I know a lot of people that are still afraid to go outside. There's just a lot going on that I didn't realize would happen in this sort of situation. But then again, I didn't think this sort of situation would happen. So I see that there's a huge effect on people.
Yeah, I agree. Just from a friendship standpoint, how many friends of mine I have not seen due to this because difference of opinions. Some people want to be locked up, don't want to see each other. Distancing on a much larger level. I'm a little different than most because I didn't stop working during this. So right. I've always been outside. So it's very bizarre to me to see friends of mine who, literally lock themselves away.
I agree. I have a lot of friends that don't come out unless they absolutely have to. They don't see people and they don't participate in life events anymore. They stay home because the fear is if they go out, they're going to get sick. And it's kind of on the obsessive side. It hasn't, like you would think that certain things would be important enough for them to show up, like birth of a child or say a graduation, and people just are not doing that.
Yeah. Again, I find it very bizarre because we live in a world now where let's say you do go out and you are lucky enough to go to dinner somewhere. You walk in with a mask on, sit down, take it off. People are right on the other side of you in some of these restaurants. And then you put the mask back on and walk out. We can argue whether masks do something or don't until we're all blue in the face. But the hypocrisy that I see in everything, like how many people are inside stores, grocery stores, walking around with masks on, grabbing cans of food, not taking it and putting it back on the shelf. I
see that all the time.
So to me, it's crazy. So the people that we're talking about who obviously have been locked away, most self-inflicted.
Agreed.
Which I find very, very disheartening from a social standpoint. What we've done to human beings is not a good thing.
Well, if you think about it, from the very beginning, they bombarded every social media page, every news outlet that there was with a fear-based response to all this, that you're not supposed to go out and you need to keep yourself clean and don't bring anything in from outside and always wash your hands, and it's airborne and it lives on plastic and it lives on this and it lives on that. The information that was put out there made everybody so afraid, including me. And I wouldn't say that I'm somebody that typically is afraid of much. So I found that what they did was they just put so much fear in all of us, and people that do already live in a state of being nervous or having fear, it got taken to a next level. And then I've noticed people that were not normally scared, they took it to a next level. There was no rhyme or reason in who stayed scared and who didn't. I personally, my whole life changed during COVID. So I had to move. I had to change the way I did things. I'm getting divorced. My shop was shut down. I'm a hairstylist. So that I had to go find another place during the pandemic while we were shut down. Then I was able to work, but only minimally and with masks, and the type of care we had to give to the shop on cleanliness, and how every time somebody sat down and got back up, we had to clean everything. It was chaotic. I mean, it did not make going to work fun in the least. And then trying to talk while you have a mask on is next to, it's impossible, because people can't see your expressions. They don't know where you're coming from. I spent the first year working at this salon not knowing who anyone was, because I only saw their eyes. I still am having problems learning their names because I haven't seen anybody's face since I started there. So it's been an interesting ordeal.
I think that mostly in something like you do, where your quarantine madness is actually at work.
Yeah. Well, it was everywhere.
I know, but you're in something where they tried to keep things open and you still had to deal with whatever madness that was. I kind of did the same thing. I work in a service-based industry where we, for like 8 months, only did drive-ups. So people would order stuff and park and call in and say, come get it. So we would take it out to their car and blah, blah, blah. So, but I had same thing, mask and carts and clean everything and blah, 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 which again, I get. I'm not arguing the fact that, yes, we should have done that. But what it's done to us, I think, as a society, like, again, how many people do we know or read about that family died, couldn't go to a funeral?
Everybody I know.
Yeah. So what have we done? What are we giving up to have this supposedly work? We're giving up what we are as human beings, at least in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, and I'm, definitely not going to try to break down that part of it, but the mental, what it's done to people I know who literally lost loved ones, they still haven't had a funeral. And that was a year ago.
I have a cousin that passed away last May, and we still have not had a funeral for him. It's definitely taking its toll. I don't know what we're doing. We're choosing not to live the way that we should be living because we're afraid, and rightfully so. We've lost. I know people that have lost several people in their family, and their families are devastated. I get that, but that's the exception. It's not the rule.
Correct. And I think that I know people who had friends in the hospital that were not there for COVID.
Right.
That were dying and they didn't get to see them.
Yes. That happened to everybody during that time.
We're giving up what we are as human beings to something that is arguably you're not going to die from.
Right.
Yes, people have died, but there's other issues inside that of why they did, or pre-existing conditions, diabetes, being overweight, whatever the underlying issues are for a lot of people. And
that's not the case for everybody, because I do know some people that have been typically very healthy throughout their life, didn't have any underlying conditions, and just died very suddenly due to COVID. But again, that's such a minimal statistic that
Correct.
It's not even noteworthy.
It's again, we're balancing both of these things, I think. Again, you can't argue that this is not killing people.
Right.
It is. It's factual. But where do we draw the line of what living is?
I don't know. For me, it was very hard to exist during quarantine. I felt very isolated. I felt trapped. I was very much alone. My husband and I decided to split up and get divorced during this. Like, it brought a lot of things to the surface that weren't there before. And it's definitely changed everything about our existence.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny because I think we'll see for me and you who've known each other a long time. We finally started hanging out again at the end of this, or whatever the end is to us, where things started to become open again, where we could go sit down and eat.
Yes.
But there's still people locked up. And I think that's the crazy thing is what is it doing to the people that are locked up? And I think that's where the madness in this conversation we're having starts happening. So what happens to the human mind when you're locked up? You have nothing but fear, and anything you watch on television or social media is doing nothing but pounding you with more fear.
Right.
You get suicide, overdose, and addiction.
Right.
I think those are the three things that are coming from this. And then on the backside of that are depression, and hard depression, not just where you start, every day it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to clean your house, and you have nothing else to do but do that. So the depression is kicked in so bad that you stop caring about the place that you're in when you can't go anywhere.
Right.
I've seen pictures of these crazy houses that literally look like a hoarder lives there, and they're not hoarders. They've just given in to, no, this is what we do now. We don't go anywhere. We don't see people. I think, it's a sad thing. And we as a society need to do something quickly before we lose what being human is.
I'd agree with that. I know out of my friends, everybody seemed to start drinking more so than they did on a normal day. I mean, day drinking became a normal thing. Drinking while you're working became a very normal thing. Drug abuse is up. There's just a lot of trying to indulge, but I think it's also to kind of give us a break from what's going on, kind of ease the pain, maybe take away the scared feelings. I know even in my life, drinking became more of a thing, and I'm not even a drinker.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a coping mechanism. I mean,
absolutely.
Drug use and alcohol, obviously, this in the same category. But I think you're right. I think it became easy where people who worked online and maybe didn't have to Zoom or didn't have to check in, where you're literally just looking at a screen, typing in your order or whatever it is you do. Why not have a glass of wine?
Why not stay in your pajamas for 16 months straight? I know people that do that.
Yeah, I know people who didn't get up and shower in the morning. They would shower during the day, but would literally roll out of bed, make your egg and toast, and do your work. And even if they had to Zoom, they would only put on a shirt.
Yeah.
So
and there was a lot of videos when people would stand up and they forgot they were in their underwear. They were only dressed from the waist up.
Yep.
Those are kind of funny.
Lots of people got in trouble because, again, I think from the standpoint of a profession, Zoom became your office.
Yes.
And people were like, hey, you can't show up in your pajamas.
That's true. You know what? I've always been a hugger and a kisser. That's what my family has always done from the time I was born. You were taught to kiss, your grandparents, your parents, your aunts, uncles, cousins, all the way down. You kissed everybody in the family and gave them a hug. I noticed that since this has happened, I don't hug and kiss people like I used to. And I've noticed that I've had several friends that said, you used to be warm and inviting, and now you're like, hey, what's up? And then you don't even approach a person. And I didn't realize I wasn't acting normal. I just thought that I don't know what I thought, but maybe I was just giving everybody their space because I don't know how everybody feels. But I think it's more than that. I think it was me. It was like, okay, let's keep the cooties to a minimum. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get you sick. Let's just keep our little distance. And I realized that in being with my family, like my dad, I don't kiss him anymore. And he was a big one for, if you get home, you say hello and you give him a hug and a kiss. If you go to bed, you give him a hug and a kiss. You leave, you give him a hug and a kiss. Like it was something that you always did. And I noticed I don't do it. And I think he's kind of getting a little resentful.
Do you think that that's a fixable action?
Yes, but it's going to take me consciously making the decision to do that. But I always, in the back of my head, I think, I've been around a lot of people today. Is that the right thing to do? Who has he been around? Who's been exposed? Because, every day I'm hearing like people close to me are being exposed to it. As a matter of fact, I've been exposed to it more than a dozen times. So I think that for me, I just don't want to be the reason anybody gets sick. So I'm trying to hold back. But I notice it's not healthy for me and it's not healthy for them because that's not who I am.
Agree. I think that there's something to that. Nobody wants to get anyone sick. I think that even the people who don't want to get the vaccination, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. No one wants to get someone sick. So the argument for a vaccine is a whole other show. I think that we can do a whole hour on this, just that alone. But I think that you're right. I think your habits now are changed. You're always going to wonder if that person wants you to hug them or not.
Right. I'd agree with that.
We've changed how that works. Thankfully, I think some people are going to revert quite easily. I hope so. I just think because human nature, people like you who are that's how you're built. You're built to hug and kiss people because you've done it since the dawn of time. So for me, it's that's a big deal. I hope that society in general gets back to that where we're doing things just because we are. I'm seeing it a little bit more of more people shaking hands, more people giving each other hugs that are close friends.
Yeah.
More, I wouldn't say outside of the circle as much.
Right.
Where I work, people don't shake hands. They just don't. And we used to. So I think that's something that's going to have to change because I still think there's something to that part of us being humans of, we've shaken hands for so long in the business world, bumping elbows seems almost hysterical to me.
It seems like we're in high school on the play yard, not addressing somebody that has any sort of meaning in our lives, just like
True.
A random thing to do while you're playing basketball with the guys.
True. And I think that's, again, a very slippery slope of being thrown into madness to where now people don't trust their own family. People have lost family members out of this. And just the part of being, mad at each other over, different opinions. That's crazy to me. You know,
that's a whole nother show in itself, like not agreeing with how you're supposed to act, or if you get the shot or if you don't get the shot. I mean, man, I get to the point where I don't tell anybody anything, and I'm an open book, and I just like, I don't want to tell people if I did or did not get the shot. I don't want to tell anybody I went to a concert. I don't want to tell anyone that I went to the grocery store even, because it seems like everybody's got an opinion and they don't share mine.
Correct. And I think that they overly share those.
Right. Oh, yeah. Everybody. I've had people that won't come back to me because I didn't get the shot. I've had people that make me they bring a special mask because they want me to wear that mask because I could be infected because I saw a couple of friends, or because their neighbor came in before them and they don't trust the neighbor because the neighbor's out too much. You wouldn't believe all the weird things that people have told me about how I need to act to cut their hair.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely different. Thankfully, I haven't had anything that crazy yet. And I haven't even had somebody like in the store say anything about me not wearing a mask, thankfully. And maybe it's just because I'm a big dude and have a few tattoos and look intimidating.
I think our generation is the ones that are kind of bucking the system and saying, no, this is crazy. We don't need to wear the masks. Even a little bit younger, they're saying the same thing, but the older ones, they're getting pissed if we don't follow. I just hear follow the rules so we can all get through this. Follow the rules. Whose rules?
Yeah. Well, there is no getting through this. This is forever.
Yeah, you're right.
This is the flu bug. It's just, it's turned up to 11,
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want a Spinal Tap reference. So let's go back to what we were talking about with addiction, because I think that we were talking about obviously drinking up twofold and having people we know personally doing it during the day. Because I do. I know several people who had not one issue at all doing it. Now, again, maybe not to the level of being hammered, but drinking all day. So like being steady all day. So I find that to be a little crazy, but
I noticed my friends, their thing now is their recyclable, like sippy cups, the Yetis that everybody was keeping their drinks cold has now got alcohol in them. And it's like, oh, are you having some coffee? Yeah, that's what they're having.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
and everybody's got one. I even got my own because I didn't have one for this. So my friend shipped me one. She didn't bring it to me, but she shipped it to my house so I could have a sippy cup with alcohol in it.
Wow. Yeah, that's a little scary. But again, I think that, under circumstances, obviously that was early pandemic was very much like that.
Yes.
But, you want to get into like talking like heavy drugs, because I think that's like more of the scary thing of overdoses. Because I tried looking up some statistics, and there's really nothing close to this month. So the last month I really kind of found was about May of 2021, give or take.
Okay.
So May to May is basically what the statistics were trying to show. Overdoses in this country are up 27%.
That's insane.
Okay. So we're talking, a whole quarter of what the normal overdoses are for this country. So obviously drug use is up heavily, and it's not like it's weed, like weed doesn't kill you. These are hard narcotics, obviously pills are up, oxy, that kind of thing where you're deadening some kind of pain. Unfortunately, for some reason, heroin is a big time drug. Like,
of course.
but more than I thought. Like, again,
so you're saying it's been used more, or it's more.
It's being used more. Yeah.
Okay.
By a larger range of what you would think use it. Like,
really,
it's not just like poor people, or it's not just middle class. It's everyone. And now with fentanyl being in everything, like I just saw, I read, I don't know, a day or two ago, these comedians, got some cocaine and had fentanyl in it, and 2 of them died.
I heard that.
So obviously they're cutting these drugs with other things to make them go farther, blah, blah, blah. But I just that they're up 27%, well, 27 to 29% is astounding. That kind of number is, to me, is out of control. Like, if it was any other year that we weren't locked up and suicide or overdoses went up 27%, there would be a problem.
Absolutely.
It'd be an epidemic. People would wonder why it's happening. Kind of like the crack of the early 90s, when crack was just killing people hand over fist. And for one, that was a poor drug. So like they made it for cheap and sold it to everybody. So it was just killing everyone. I think that it's a very scary, scary thing that we're at this. We're at a time where like you're home, you're locked up, and now you're on drugs. And although I looked up suicides and I was shocked that they were down as a country.
Yeah, they are.
Okay? They were down as a country, but I will tell you that there are states that aren't down.
Right.
Okay. So California, New York, and Louisiana have an uptick in suicides. Now that could also be, there's just a lot more people.
It's true.
So that could kind of be it. I'm not sure. But that being said, even that's kind of a scary thought that, being locked up will make you think thoughts that you generally don't.
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that.
How do we fix this? We're bound and determined to lock people up some more.
Right.
And I don't, at least in the state we're in, it seems like we're going to go back to some kind of lockdown.
Is that what they're saying?
I know either that or you're going to have to have a vaccine pass to go anywhere.
I heard that starts Monday
in LA County.
Yeah, in LA County on Monday. Any place that has people over 10,000 guests, they must either show a negative test, which is done in a certain amount of time, or they have to show that they have their card of inoculation. Correct.
And I heard that it's going to be, I just saw it today. It was bars, gyms,
sporting events,
huge sporting events, clubs, and something else. But yes, at least LA County for now.
And you have to be masked.
And you have to be masked. So what do you think that's going to do to businesses? Oh, and restaurants, obviously, restaurants. What is that going to do to business?
It's going to make people not want to go out. I know just people, they complain about wearing the mask. Like, it doesn't do anything. It's not making a difference. Why do we have to wear a mask? I would just rather not go out. I'll cook at home. I'll stay home. I'll watch whatever on TV or live streaming. And then I don't have to deal with it. That's the general consensus.
Yeah. I mean, man, again, we're going to push people back indoors. And then what's going to happen with the gathering at home? what's going to happen when we go to that again, where it becomes where you're not gathering at home, or they're going to count how many people at your house because your neighbor's some asshole who's going, I see 12 people at their house and they're not social distancing or they're not doing this. We're turning our own people against each other.
I've heard that too. And I'm disgusted by it. I think people need to move away from what everybody else is doing and start concentrating on how they're acting.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something to that. Like, look, if you want to stay in your house and you want to lock yourself up and you don't want to see human beings, awesome. Have no problem with that. Matter of fact, I'll leave you the fuck alone.
Exactly.
But when you start infringing on my freedom or my ability to still be a human being, we have a problem. And I know that that's going to catch me some heat because people don't want to hear that shit. They just want to be content with
do what you're supposed to do and not make any waves, and everybody will be fine in no time.
Yeah, correct.
Today.
It's do as you're told. And if you don't like it, do as you're told. It's like, no, freedom comes at a cost, and security should not get rid of your freedom. They should walk hand in hand. My freedom should be of choice. If I invite people over and they know me, they know what they're getting into.
This has gone on, though, with several things I noticed in our time. I remember when 9/11 happened, all the cameras that have been, everybody's got cameras now where there wasn't all the cameras before, or they would, they just dig into what is our freedom a little bit with each and every big thing that they want to put out there. And we're losing our rights on a daily basis because of doing this in the sake of keeping everyone safe. They're not keeping people safe. They're keeping people locked up. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, look at Australia. I mean, if you watch the news and see what's going on in Australia, it is, the closest thing to a socialistic dictatorship of locking people away. They're telling people don't go, 5 meters from your house. Don't go to see your next door neighbor. Don't talk to other people. They've had almost no cases. It's just a very scary, 1984-ish, where the government is just like, you do as we say. And if you don't like it, we don't care. And they have no guns there.
Right.
So that they have no defense against the police department or the army or whoever would tell you just stay in your house. It's a slippery slope of freedom and security. We need to have both.
I agree.
But we're dividing this country more and more and more and more every time we start putting this rule into effect or putting this rule into effect or putting this rule into effect. The next thing you know, all you have is rules. And
it's putting it into effect for the good of mankind. That's what I'm having a problem with. I'm like, wait a minute, can't I make my own choice? Because last I checked, I was an American who was, according to the Constitution, not only was this a right, but it's expected. I'm supposed to fight to be free. And now my government's saying, but not that free. Not that free.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. I try to see both sides of this. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants sick people.
Agree.
But you can't make me lock myself up and say that don't worry about it. Everything will be fine if you do this. It was 15 days, right?
Yes, it was supposed to be 2 weeks.
That was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. When does it end? It's not. So we just need to understand that we either tell the majority in power, no, we're not doing it. And if we're going to do that, we need to do it.
Well, we did. Okay, so in the salons, we did say no. We stayed open when we weren't supposed to. We did underground haircuts. We worked out of our homes. We did all these things, and now that we're working, now we have the health department coming in and just screwing with us relentlessly, making sure we're wearing our masks properly, making sure that we have the right type of mask. Because if somebody comes in, they need to have this sort of mask, and that's what we need to offer. And I'm like, wait a minute, if we're all supposed to wear masks, they should be wearing their own. Why should I offer that if I don't even wear it? And then what is the health department doing in our shop anyway for not wearing a mask? Now we're doing our part. We're wearing our masks. We're keeping stuff clean. It is ridiculous to the degree we have to do everything. And this is how we get paid back, by maybe one person's mask coming off because we had to cut around their ears, or we had to wash their hair. We had to do something and it slipped down. That's what people are going to call and complain about. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And, you can't have it both ways. Okay. If you're out getting a haircut, you should know what's coming. Right. So if you're going to go someplace and say, I want it this way and I want it this way, it's like, if you don't like the place you're getting a haircut, don't go.
Agreed.
Like,
and that's so happening different. A lot.
Yeah. And I think it's no different than the restaurant. Okay. If you have a restaurant and you want everyone masked or you want everyone vaccinated, more power to you. But if the one next to you doesn't, then the people who aren't are going to go to one, and the people who are going to go to another. And I think we need to understand that it's going to happen that way. And you can't alienate people. You're going to push further and further away what we are as people. And again, the madness of what this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I would agree with you completely.
Yeah. So what do you think we can do to curb this madness in a reality state? Like, obviously we could let everybody out, or we can lock everybody up and people are going to go off the edge. What do you think we can do? Because I've tried to think about this, like, realistically as a person, like, what do we do?
I think that just talking about it is a good start. I also think, for my friends, I'm like, I miss you. I want to start hugging you again. And, let's get back to some sort of normal, because we both need it. Not just, one of us, everybody needs it. There's statistics that people live longer when they're touched, when they're hugged. Men have less heart disease when they get enough affection during the day. Those are facts. Those are things that happen. So I believe that if we don't start getting back to being human again and loving on each other and spending time and making those connections and quit letting fear run us, this isn't going to get any better.
Agreed. I think that the roundabout thing is whatever people think normal is. See, normal, like I hate the whole, this is the new normal. No, bullshit. There is no new normal. It's just go back to life. Yep, you can get sick. Yeah, you could die. You're more apt to get in a car accident and die in a car accident than die of this virus. That's just facts. Period.
By far.
Because you're in the car more, you're going far for work, you're driving to see people, whatever it is, you are more apt to die in a car accident. But we all still get in a car, right?
Right. To go right down the street.
Yeah. And there is arguments to, I've had arguments to that as well. Like, well, that's different. Statistically, no. statistically, you're probably more apt to probably fall down a staircase, even if you don't own one, and die.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so when you start throwing out legitimate statistics, yeah, I mean, you have to look at the world the way it is. I want to see human beings. I don't want to be a locked up prisoner.
I agree. And I felt like that, like, especially in the beginning, I had to quit watching TV. I couldn't listen to the radio. I had to stop all media just to have some peace of mind, because every time I'd hear something more, I was trapped in my own head. So this is, if somebody who's normally healthy in their mind, like I am, is having problems like that, I could imagine the people that are more fear-based, and that's got to be to such a detriment to their health all the way around. I really don't see things getting better until it gets back to where we could be human with each other. And part of being human is being close and showing affection and kindness and greeting people. We've just got to get back to that.
Yeah, you said something earlier that I think was huge about not seeing smiles. I think we've gotten away from seeing what makes people happy and human. I couldn't imagine being a young person in high school, junior high, seeing your friends every day and laughing, but not seeing them laugh. I think that you're right. There's something to that kind of contact of seeing the smile. Facial expressions are everything. We are visual creatures, and not being able to see that, I think, is a big deal.
Nonverbal communication is way more important than what you could physically say. And we've gotten to a place where we can't even read that. And I have a really hard time with that, because I like to know where people are at inside, not just what they're saying, because somebody could say something, but I know when I look at them, if I could see them, that what they're saying and what they're doing are completely different. So I like when people don't have their masks on. I mean, I know that they shouldn't, they should keep them on for whatever reasons everybody's saying. I get that. But for me to just be able to see somebody completely, to know what they look like when they laugh, when they cry, I can't connect when I can't see that. It's very hard for me.
Totally agree. I think that's a huge deal, and hopefully soon we'll get back to that. So we're going to wrap this up. Is that okay with you?
I would say that's fine.
Let's give you last words, and then I'll say a couple, and we'll make it a day.
I would just say that mental health is equally as important as keeping yourself healthy from COVID. And if we don't start getting affectionate and showing human kindness and being tolerant of everybody's opinions, because that seems to be what this all is. It's an opinion. Like if our government can't agree and we can't agree, well, then it's just down to opinions. We need to keep ourselves safe and happy, maybe do stuff to make sure we're not getting sick, keep our hands cleaned, make sure that we're not, going out and being with people that we know aren't being healthy. Things will get better. But if without human contact, without human kindness, without patience, this is going to take over in ways we're not ready to deal with. And that's
I agree. And I'll say a little Hulk Hogan here for you. He had it kind of said it right. You gotta train, gotta say your prayers, you gotta eat your vitamins. I hate to say that it's that simple, but we do as a society have to look at the bigger picture as well. Your mental health goes along with your physical health that will make you better from this. So I think we just need to get better as a country. I've been taking zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C and for a long time, way before this. And I have been around people who had COVID, like in close proximity and didn't get it. So just, get out and be human and, try to be better. You're right. Be better. Be healthy. And on that note, I will say, whatever your take is on this, don't get it twisted, because when you start getting this twisted, the society breaks down. We will be back next week with another exciting episode. And until then, Miss Tina, it's been a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. Talk to you
I am the
next
professor,
week.
and we'll see you next week.